Hello. I'm at Coffee Weekly as a guest for the first time. My name is Elias, and I was invited by Otto, and there's also Henrik and Sheldon. Thank you for being a guest here.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for the very nice introduction, Elias. And I'm Sheldon.
I'm Henrik.
Everybody very spontaneous today. Any reason why?
Well, today's topic is spontaneity, the noun that nobody can pronounce, and we can't either.
Spontaneity, I guess.
Just being spontaneous. What about that?
Being spontaneous.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same. Spontaneity. I asked Google again, and then I used the text to speech function. Then it says it one time, then it's in my short-term memory, but in 10 seconds it's gone, and we're back to spontaneity. So here we are. Elias, maybe you want to tell us 2 or 3 sentences about yourself, what you want to do, what you do.
I think I'm a very spontaneous person. I do whatever I usually feel like doing, both, at least in work sense. So a lot of weird ideas, and I just run with them and see where it takes. But it also means I don't finish many things, which is all like the negative side of it. But yeah, I don't know what type of intro you wanted. Felt like jumping into the spontaneity. We need to call it something else. It's gonna be a problem. Spontaneity.
Being spontaneous. Well, but
that was exactly what I wanted. Yes.
Yeah, but that was also kind of the point. We thought that having you introducing yourself in our podcast would being a very spontaneous thing, and it's always nice to see how it evolves. Because I think one little thing about being spontaneous is that you don't really know how it is before you do it. But in my view, it is mostly actually gonna be fine if you act in the moment. And so I think in general, being spontaneous is maybe a good thing to a certain degree, of course. So you were saying you're spontaneous mostly in work sense. So does it differentiate from differ from private? Are you like very unspontaneous privately?
I don't think I'm very spontaneous when it comes to like relationships. I think I'm very like to think that over and like, what is this? Where is this going to lead? Where am I at with this person? But if somebody says, hey, I have this fun project on Saturday, do you want to do it? I can be like, yeah, totally. And then I without even looking at a schedule. And then I go back and like, shit, but I've already said yes to 3 other things. Now I guess I need to juggle all of these things or disappoint people because I just said yes to things.
Yeah, I think that being spontaneous has different meaning depending on the context. And in one sense, there is like this sense of lack of planning when you're doing a lot of things while also being spontaneous, like, oh, today I feel like doing this, tomorrow I feel like doing that. But there's also like on your behavior as a person, when you're demonstrating emotions, there's also the people that usually are called spontaneous are usually people that are more honest, I would say, or at least that they show their emotions on a more true colors way instead of like planning how to act, I would say. So I think that there is this meaning as well. Would you agree, or how would you define being spontaneous on your own words?
I think it's.
I'm asking for Elias, but everybody can give their 2 cents.
You go, Henrik. You were
okay. Thanks. Yeah. I was just like, maybe a quick one is like not sticking to a plan. So it's kind of the opposite that I use as a definition here. Doing something that was not prepared before. Elias, what did you want to add?
I don't know. I feel like sometimes you can plan to be spontaneous, which feels like it's going against itself. You can be like, no, tomorrow I'll have a spontaneous day, which is you planning to do not plan it, which fucks it up, I guess.
What I also do sometimes, on some days I wake up, I don't know, on a Saturday, and I realize I don't have any plans, and then I am like, okay, I'm gonna do something that I wouldn't do. So I plan something spontaneously, which is also another way to do it. But I mean, maybe the thing fitted quite well. Something you didn't like think of in advance, and something that is created in the moment rather than being prepared. So something that is being influenced by the state of reality or your environment or yourself, or basically anything that is an input to your decision. And that's something, I mean, from my personal point of view, I know I've gone through some very drastic contrasts in my life. I know that I used to be very strictly, I want to do this at the time and be on time, and then I want to do that and schedule and have a calendar and everything. And to be fair, it felt very good. I had a schedule. I was very productive. I worked different projects. I was studying. I had some free time as well. And of course, there was many things that were like not as planned. But that's, I was pretty much fine with that. And
you guys are developers, all of you, right? You're on somewhere on the engineering spectrum of things having to be very planned. And you're also like German, right? There needs to be some rigidity there as well.
Yeah, it is Hendrik and me being German and Sheldon being Brazilian. So when the stereotype would fit, we would be kind of the opposite. Where are you on the engineering spectrum? Yes.
Oh, I'm not on the. I mean, so I have these like planning things I do every day. So I mean, but that's just because I need to do that. Otherwise, I won't do anything. I don't know.
So you handle maybe for all the audio only listeners, this was a piece of paper with some boxes and lines, which looks like you can write on them.
Yeah, it's basically just a to-do list, but I have one for each day that I can.
It looks like the structure of a bullet journal.
Yeah. So I tried using a bullet journal, but every sort of system made for planning only works for when you use it. And I only use those systems for like 1 week, and then I forget to use them. And then it's also spontaneous again.
This is pretty much, just to continue this, I mean, this is pretty funny because I was giving a talk, actually a lightning talk, when I was at Klarna about different tools, strategies to like how to forget things and still get them done. That was my task. And I was like, you can use a calendar, you can use a to-do list, or just some free notes or something. And I was like, at the time, I was very like in the routine, in the schedule. I was using them, and I was like preaching, yeah, you should just use something that works for you. Just 1 month later, I stopped using anything, and since then, I haven't even like my life has been a complete chaos. In the beginning, it really sucked because I was like, oh, where's the structure? I really feel bad, but I somehow refused to stick to tools. I was like, nah, I don't want to. But I've gotten to learn to act very well in this chaos. So some things I still write down, but I just, I wake up and I'm like, oh shit, I should have done this. And like, it's just 5 minutes before time I woke up and I'm like, yeah, thanks, brain. But I just realized it works quite kind of well after you come late many, many times, and then you kind of realize, but it's actually like a non state of like, I don't plan something on purpose, yet it still kind of happens. And that's something that was very different from before. So I don't really know how to feel about it. I just think that I'm happy, but I also have like 50 messages I haven't answered since like 8 months. So there's that.
How do you think your environment, the people that surround you, feel about it?
Good question. I mean, if I would meet myself now, like 2 years ago, I would meet myself today, I would probably give me a slap in the face and be like, dude, why don't you plan? Like planning, how this works? But on the other side, I mean, I'm very like relaxed, I don't have stress like, oh, I gotta finish this in time and this. I'm just like, whatever,
And that brings me back to what Elias said earlier, that he has a lot of things that he spontaneously starts, but doesn't finish them because that's the downside. And I think that links to that. I'm actually curious, Elias, about your experience. Like, how do you handle this in your professional life? Like considering 2 aspects. For the one, you had your to-do list. How do you handle it if something spontaneously comes in between your bullet points? Am I still connected?
Yeah.
Okay.
I only have one thing on my list that I need to do. Everything else is shit. Like I can. Oh no, wait.
Before you continue, because you mentioned that all of us except you are engineers, and there is like a correlation between the profession and the habit. So what do you do in your daily basis? What do you work with? And after answering that, do you think that your working behaviors reflect on your life behaviors?
I mean, my background is in art, as an artist, and study art and all of that, which I think is maybe on the other side of, if there is a spectrum from engineer to art, they can meet, of course, but
I would say there's some overlap.
yeah, there is overlap. I don't know what the opposite would be, but doesn't matter.
Nice.
But yeah, so a background in art and like your own process. I mean, and in my work, I've almost always been my own boss. So it's me deciding if I'm doing something or not. Or, of course, you have these you have people from the outside that have what do you call it, demands on you that you need to meet, family, friends, work, and I'm good at meeting those when there's somebody that actually needs something from me, or if I've told somebody I'm going to do this. But other than that, I don't know. I think I'm just spontaneous at all times, or I try to be at least.
It's interesting that
yeah.
Interesting that you mentioned the part that you were your own boss. Before moving to Ireland, I was working as a consultant in Brazil, so it's kind of like my own boss as well, more or less. And this behavior shaped me till today, more or less, because even to this day I have some difficulty on asking for help. And I believe, like doing some introspection, I believe that this is because back then I didn't have anybody to ask for help. So why should I today? If I was successful back then, I can be successful without asking help nowadays. I'm trying to lose that because I think collaboration is nice, but it's funny because like those little things that you do on a daily basis, they reflect on how you behave on your whole life.
That's a very interesting concept about asking for environment. I was almost always in environments where people were much more, senior and older and experienced than me. So there was no environment where I was an expert. So I could never pretend or act like an expert. But I got used to that. So even then, when I was maybe the most senior in the team, tech-wise, I was still like in the same mindset of trying to learn from people, which is also very convenient. At some point, I was a team lead, and then whenever there was a question, we have this problem on this service when there is a lot of traffic, and then people would expect me to come up with a solution, I would be like, oh yeah, how would you solve it? Which is also, I mean, a very nice way of doing less work, but also learning from others. And I'm very happy actually that I happen to be younger than my peers, and that I got kind of forced into that path down, because that's something I realized at some point. It's very helpful because I know I talk a lot and I tend to take a major role in conversations, but yet deep in the inside, I listen and I learn from my environment. And I think it's very, very awesome. I would say even like interns or people that are new to something, I love it. Like you have thoughts, mindsets, approaches that some people would say, oh, this is like stupid, or this is like, doesn't make sense. But when you then think about it, wait, the solution can be actually so simple. It is so good. Maybe there's like some, things we forgot, but there's a lot of beauty to like being different in an environment where it's not the way it's used to be.
And one thing that I think connects what you just said, like the collaboration part, and what Elias said earlier. I think I forgot the point. You do want to say?
I have a question. When was the? Can you remember a time in your life when you made like a spontaneous decision that like had big ramifications? Like, do you have one of those? Yeah, like maybe a trip, or like, I don't know, something like that.
I actually have one. It's a cool question. I went with Otto to the gym spontaneously. He just asked, like he had a sleepover at my place. We were studying in the same city back then. And he said like, I'm going to the gym. You want to join? And I was like, okay, I'm looking for some new sport and let's try it out. And I stick to it until today. And I think I was the first time in the gym with Otto then.
Wait, what?
How about
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anybody else with a similar experience in this round?
I mean, it's kind of hard to pinpoint one specific experience because I really push myself to try to loosen up, to be like, oh, I meet someone who likes, I don't know, playing music or who likes, I don't know, doing something. And then something inside of me would be like, oh, but I want to do this. So I shouldn't be adding too much to my schedule, or maybe, I don't know, this is not fun because I'm not good at it. But I really try to actively throw myself into the water repeatedly every single time. So, which then in the end, when I sometimes read like, I don't know, my diary, oh, that's what I wanted to achieve at some point, I somehow end up going there. So what I do sometimes, I mean, as I said, like it's a Saturday, I don't know what to do. And I just want to, I don't know, do something different because I have a full day. Oh my goodness, I can do so fucking much. I tend to actually end up doing something similar that I would do, but it always happens to be very nice because I run into people or just like knock on someone's door, and then I don't know, you just go out and then you meet other people and then you have a spontaneous hangout at some park and whatever, which is kind of nice. But that's something I really have as a mindset. I want to just out of like just as a system, as principle, I do something, I want after time try to just invoke some change to it and see what happens. And mostly it's actually very good.
Yeah. Well, you just brought me back to what I wanted to say. And the reason I forgot is that I was paying attention to what you were saying. And then I forgot because I was paying attention to it. But anyway, now I have a little note here on my other screen. But basically what you just said ties back to what Elias said earlier when like he was saying, oh, I want to plan to be spontaneous. And it's kind of is paradoxical because like I'm planning to not plan. And this brings me to a concept called, I don't remember the exact name, but basically it's like an umbrella of luck. So if you imagine luck being a rain, if you get your umbrella and you put it upside down, you're going to catch rain on your umbrella. And the bigger the umbrella, the more rain you're going to catch. So the idea is you can create spontaneous moments in your life. Like you said, like, oh, when I wake up on a Saturday, I'm going to do nothing. Or, oh, I'm going to work from the office today because there I'm going to meet people and create spontaneous conversation, which will bring stuff. Oh, I'm going to go to this bar or this pub by myself because I'm going to meet people that could be spontaneous like me. So I think that we can create environments that promote spontaneity.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard of that concept before, and I think I've explained it to other artists. Like, so there's a few artists out there that are not well known, or like you're sitting in their studio making their things, that do amazing things, but their things are almost never going to be seen by anybody because they never go out and show it to somebody. And like they're not putting themselves at a place where they will get luck. So like going to a show and like talking to people, that's you putting yourself, you don't know what's going to happen there, but you're putting yourself at a place where you could be lucky to find somebody or talk to somebody.
I mean, it's a very dumb analogy, but of course, if you want to win the lottery and you never buy a lottery ticket, you can never win. It's a very, I mean, simple way to say it, but I fully agree with this.
I mean, luck is a lot about chance. So you have to throw the dice if you want to get a 6 at one point.
But what about you, Elias? Is there a time in your life that really was a spontaneous happening, so to say, but it affected you up until today?
Yeah, I had stopped my art school, and I was like having a shitty job, and I knew I need a job that has some sort of wood workshop or studio that I can also work in. And then I was super tired. I'd worked all night, like, I don't know, moving people's luggage onto boats, like rich Americans that came here to Stockholm. It was like hard labor, just move things on there, put labels on it, ship it away. But I was super tired, and then a friend asked like, hey, do you want to go to a park and drink a beer? And I was like, yeah, fuck it, yes, let's escape this thing. And at the park we were drinking, a friend of a friend of a friend was like, got a phone call from her mother, and the mother was like, hey, we really need a woodworking teacher. Do you know anybody that knows any woodworking? And she basically just put like, does anyone here know any woodworking? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm like, do you want a job? Yeah. What is it? It's like, do you think you could be a teacher? I'm like, I guess. How hard can it be? And then all of a sudden there was like a phone interview, contract signing, and everything the next day. And then like 1 week after, I started working, and I worked as a woodworking teacher back and forth for 3 years.
Nice.
But I mean,
but that was just me also not having anything I was saying no to. Like, I had a shitty job. It was easy for me to make that spontaneous decision, because it was like, yeah, well, this road, if you want, looked greener, looked like it was leading somewhere.
I mean, so yeah, like, what was like, if you think about the act of being spontaneous, let's say somebody, they're like, oh, this is a cool thing, I want to also be like spontaneous. What do they do? Because in your case, something came to you and you said yes, or you didn't say no, depending on how you phrase it.
It's hard to be, yeah, but I think it's hard to be spontaneous about things that doesn't come to you.
Right.
I mean, well, this is going to sound very weird now, but things always come to you, right? They're not appearing out of nowhere. You're either, people are giving it to you, or your screen is giving it to you, or yeah. But what I think is weird, that you can't be spontaneous, like knock on somebody's door. You use that as I think you use it as a metaphor, because you can't go in Sweden and actually knock on somebody's door. It's going to be very weird.
I know, and I did, and he was like, what the fuck are you doing here, man? It was fun.
That's funny, because that's actually how we did it in the childhood. I don't know how about your culture in Sweden. Like, there was no smartphones, or even telephone was not that widely used. You would just went to your friends next door, rang the bell, and like, hey, is my buddy home? Is he available? And that's just like how you hanged out together. How was it for you? Like, was it also not like that in Sweden with your friends when you were a kid, Elias?
I mean, I grew up in a small village. It was definitely that.
Okay.
I think it's a difference in how far away. But I mean, I had friends that lived like probably a kilometer away, and you just jumped on your bike and you biked over there, and you're like, hey, what are we doing today?
Yeah, exactly.
But my dad has recently moved up north in Sweden, and it's kind of similar there. He actually has people just come by and just like, hey, let's drink a coffee, or
nice.
But I'd say in Stockholm, that's not a thing. I mean, I would probably get angry at somebody if they just spontaneously knocked on my door.
Fair enough. It kind of feels like that the level of spontaneity decreases with age, and also with like population size or like structures. I mean, the closer you get to a structure, which is a city, which is a capital of a country, sovereign politics, whatever, the less spontaneity there is. But also, I mean, when you think about kids, I mean, how much do you fucking plan as a kid? I mean, you wake up and you're like, oh, I want to have some ice cream, and you go get some fucking ice cream, you know, and then somebody drags you to school because, I don't know, that's what you do, and you go home and you have more ice cream, if there is some, of course. I mean, yeah, you don't know, but this is good. Like, you don't worry, you don't really commit to something, or you have to commit to something that is not good for you, because you kind of get thrown to something and you just like float in this thing, life that you were born in, and you just enjoy everything out of it. And then I feel the more we grow up, we lose that. We're more like, oh, I have to do this, and parents tell you, oh, you have to become a doctor. I'm happy that my parents didn't tell me that. Thank you, parents. But you know, it just keep on narrowing yourself. You just like become the streamlined version of what one should be. And I don't think it's like human nature, really. I mean, does it really? I mean, some things you want to maybe plan. Yeah,
Okay.
Where
Okay.
did I?
So I think there's a thing about like, so you can have high spontaneity and you can have low spontaneity. Yeah,
This
that
thing.
thing, the S word.
Sex.
And then you can have high awareness, like being. So like if you have low spontaneity and I remember seeing this somewhere. It was like this graph thing. I don't know if they flip now, but you have like spontaneity, high and low spontaneity, and then it was either like awareness or knowledge. So somebody that has low spontaneity and not being aware of the world will be a very still person doing nothing. But if you have high spontaneity and like very low in awareness, that's like you being instinctive, like you just do things. And then there's like two more that I forgot what they are. It's like deliberate, and then there's some other thing.
Yeah, I definitely want to follow up on that because I have never seen this one, and now I'm curious about it. What I usually use to explain this is like it has nothing to do with it, but it's an analogy that makes sense to me, which is entropy, which is like this state of chaos and disorder. And there's like this law of thermodynamics, and I'm really flexing my memory on physics here. But basically, there's this law of thermodynamics, I believe, that entropy only grows or something like this. And I have this idea that in our life, it's something like this. Life is always getting more and more complex. Like you have more documents. Now you have a passport that you need to carry with you when you're traveling. And then you have like tax to pay. Then you have you finance something because you want a car or a house or something. And then you have kids and you have to pay for the school for the kids. So now see, like the system now is like this monster of stuff that you have to do in life. While when you were a kid, the only thing that you have to do is wake up and go to sleep because you get fed, you get changed, your mother change your clothes. Like you don't need to do anything. Like when it's time to go to school, somebody's going to tell you. So I think that's more or less how I see it. It's just like life is going to be more and more complex and you have to suck it up.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think also it's a lot about your status in life. So imagine this contrast, like a kid, all the basic needs are being taken care of by the parents. The parents make them self-dependent or on their schedule so that all the needs are fulfilled. And I think you can see the same again with business people again, like who have their companies working for them, who have their assets working for them over time. So once you have like maybe as a business person, multiple established cash flows that you're not involved anymore, then the freedom comes back. So maybe it's a piece of luxury in our modern world to be spontaneous, and not everybody can maybe even afford it. So to conclude this topic for me, I would say like maybe it's good if we create more room for spontaneity in our lives.
Maybe that's why artists are so poor then, because they're very spontaneous. That's like
that's an interesting approach, actually.
But I mean, to be fair, in order to be able to make art, you have to have a safety net somewhere. You still have to sleep and eat and do some basic things. So
maybe if you make shit art. That's the no, I don't know.
Oh, no, you know what I mean.
Yeah. But I
Let's
believe
wrap
that
it
people
up.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up with this concept of like people say that like having these like lazy time is kind of like healthy for the brain, and it's basically the thing that makes our brain be more creative. So that's like where this concept of artists being lazy and like bohemic and or whatnot, it's I think it comes from there. Like we need to give some rest to our brains, the same way you go to the gym and have to have a rest day. Like our brains need to have some rest and act without a lot of planning. And maybe a topic for next time, we can also talk about when we don't want to be spontaneous and we want to plan stuff, like talking about time management or stuff like that.
I think that
let's see about
good.
that
Structure or something like that. Thank you for bringing me. It was a fun conversation.
Do you have any closing
Pleasure.
words or advice or just fun facts for our listeners?
No, I don't think so. I still want to know what Sheldon's spontaneous thing is and what your spontaneous thing is that you can think of that you've done.
I will think about it.
Okay, I think I have an example. I was giving a talk in a lot of years ago, and at the end of the talk, somebody offered me a job, and I went. I decided to go, and it was a really good opportunity, and it kind of led me to the path of being a consultant.
I actually have one very quick. So it was last year. I was partying every weekend in Sweden and Stockholm. It was very nice, and then I visited Henrik. And in Berlin, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna party there. And I went around and there was just police taking down every rave. And I was like very shocked. And we asked every fucking person, is there any party somewhere? And there's one person tells me, yeah, go to Teufelsee somewhere. So I take a cab at like 5 a.m. in the morning, like 40 minutes outside. And I arrive and the cab driver looks at me like, what the fuck is this guy doing? I get out, nothing. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? And my battery dies. And I'm like, what the fuck? How the fuck am I gonna go back home? So I arrive home, very annoyed, go to bed, next day, wake up, go to Henrik, and I don't know what to do. So I was like, yeah, try something new. I was like, okay, what? I was like, produce some music. And I did. So I did my first song there. And since then I've been into producing music. So that was actually very spontaneous, also from the environment, but just accepting it and letting it flow.
Nice.
That's my closing story. Anyway, then thank you everyone for having joined us. Thank you everyone for having listened to us, bearing with us. That's, I think, the right term here, joking. And we're very much looking forward to see you next week. And I'm wishing everyone a great start, rest, or I don't know, night, day, whatever it is.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.